There's a certain kind of discomfort that doesn't have a clear name. You're not burned out, you're not in crisis. Your life probably looks fine from the outside. You're functioning, you're responsible, you're capable, you're doing what needs to be done, and yet something feels off. Not dramatic, not urgent, just quietly misaligned. If that's you, I want to say this clearly at the start. Nothing is wrong with you, and you're not imagining this. I've had seasons in my own life where I couldn't point to a single thing that was objectively bad, but I still felt disconnected from myself. I wasn't falling apart. I wasn't failing. I wasn't in chaos. I was doing what I was good at, doing what made sense, doing what I had always done. And because everything looked fine, I told myself I should just be grateful and keep going. But inside, there was a quiet tension, a sense that something wasn't aligned anymore. Not enough to stop me in my tracks, but enough to follow me around. Enough to show up in my energy, enough to change how present I felt in my own life. We've been taught that burnout looks like collapse, exhaustion, irritability, cynicism, a complete inability to keep going. And that version of burnout is very real, but it's not the only experience people have. There's another version that doesn't get talked about nearly as much. It's when your life still works, but it no longer feels like yours. You're still competent, still reliable, still meeting expectations, but you feel like you're playing a role you've outgrown. This is something I see constantly in my work. People come in saying things like, I don't hate my job. I'm not overwhelmed all the time. I'm doing okay. And then they pause and add, I just don't feel connected anymore. They're still performing well, still showing up, still producing results. So they assume the problem must be them. They wonder why they can't just push through, why they don't feel more motivated, why they feel restless, even though nothing is technically wrong. But most of the time, it's not a motivation problem, and it's not a mindset issue. It's a misalignment problem. Misalignment doesn't shout, it whispers. It shows up subtly as low-grade numbness, as quiet resentment, as feeling restless and tired at the same time, as losing interest in things that used to matter, as going through the motions while feeling slightly removed from your own life. You might catch yourself saying things like, I don't know what I want anymore, or nothing's wrong, but nothing feels right, or I can't explain it, I just feel off. That's not confusion, that's information. For a long time, I thought clarity was something you had to figure out, something you had to think your way into, analyze harder, make better plans, optimize your decisions. But what I've learned, both through my own life and through coaching others, is that clarity is often less about answers and more about permission. Permission to slow down, permission to stop performing competence for a moment, permission to admit, even quietly, that something no longer fits the way it used to. Here's the distinction that matters. Burnout says, I can't keep going. Misalignment says, I can keep going, but I don't want to live this way anymore. That second one is much harder to listen to because nothing is forcing you to stop. There's no external crisis, no obvious reason to change. So you keep going, even as something inside you starts to pull away. When people ignore misalignment long enough, it does turn into burnout. But before that happens, the system is usually still functioning. You're still productive, still capable and dependable, and because of that, you override the signal. You tell yourself it's not serious enough, not justified enough, not urgent enough. But your nervous system doesn't speak in urgency. It speaks in subtle shifts. It changes in energy, engagement, and presence, in what feels heavy, in what feels draining, in what you have to push yourself to tolerate. If you're recognizing yourself in this, I want to offer a reframe. You don't need to justify your discomfort by suffering more. You don't need a breakdown to earn a pause. Feeling off is enough information to start listening. Here's a simple question you can sit with without any pressure to answer it right away. Where are you forcing momentum when what you actually need is clarity? Not what should I do next, not what's the big decision, just what am I overriding? Often the body knows long before the mind catches up. Tightness, fatigue, resistance, disinterest, a sense of dragging yourself through things that used to feel lighter. These aren't flaws, they're signals. Some of the most Meaningful changes in my life didn't start with bold action or dramatic decisions. They started with honesty, with admitting quietly and without judgment that a version of success I had been living toward no longer felt aligned. That admission didn't demand immediate change. It simply changed how I listened to myself. And that shift mattered because when you start listening differently, your choices start to change naturally. Not out of panic, not out of urgency, but out of clarity. If you're in that in-between space right now, not burned out and not inspired, you're not stuck, you're becoming aware. And awareness isn't a problem to fix. It's the beginning of clarity that actually lasts. If this resonated, you don't need to do anything with it today. You don't need to make a plan. You don't need to take action. You might just let it sit. You might revisit it later. And if you want more reflections like this about clarity, misalignment, and living with more honesty, you can explore more of my work or join me on Substack. The link is below. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.